You can be the smartest person in the entire room, with all the data and research to back you up, with all the credentials, but still completely fail to connect. That's because people aren't moved by information, they're moved by emotion. So if you can't take what you know up here and turn it into a story, it doesn't matter how smart or how right you are. But luckily for you, that's exactly what we're going to talk about in today's episode. Welcome to the Storytelling Lab, where filmmaking, brand, and business all collide. My name is Romm, Bennett, a filmmaker and an author, and for over 2 decades, I've studied how stories actually work on the screen, inside organizations, and most importantly, out in the real world. So each episode, I host one of the world's greatest storytellers to help break down the art and science of storytelling as a system, not just a skill. That means how stories create connection, how they move people emotionally, and ultimately, how they drive action. So if you want to learn to tell stories that do more than just sound good, but they actually achieve something, then this, dear storyteller, is the show for you. What's up, storytellers? Welcome back to the Storytelling Lab podcast. Today, my guest is Joseph Romm, and Joseph is a physicist, he's a climate communicator, he's an author, and he is, most importantly, I would argue, the host of the podcast Decoding Taylor Swift, which he created with his daughter, and I love that. This is one of those conversations that I love where we talk about really complex topics and how to convey the importance or the value through stories. See, Joseph comes from a science background where facts are everything, but he learned along the way that that's not what persuades people. Stories are what persuade people. And of course, we get into the beautiful journey and project that he has done with his daughter, this podcast called Decoding Taylor Swift, and how they break down the great stories that she tells, but more importantly, how they use Taylor Swift's storytelling and the love of storytelling and the love of music to bond as father and daughter. As a father of a daughter who is very close, I love this so much. I was envious of this. And it really helped them as his daughter grew and started to become her own person to still keep that connection alive through the love of stories. I can't tell you how much I love that. I can't tell you how many ideas popped into my head about ways that I could continue to strengthen the relationship with my own daughter through story. This is so inspiring. But what blew me away about Joe was how deeply he understood the power of stories, the science of stories, the impact and effect of stories. So here is my conversation with Joseph Romm, and I hope that you love it. Joe, welcome to the Storytelling Lab.
Thanks for having me, Rain.
I appreciate you being here. This is, and I believe I told you this when we first corresponded over email, this is a very unique episode for me. One of my favorite parts about the show is finding unique approaches or takes on storytelling and kind of finding the similarities between them all.
Yeah.
So this is a unique one. I'm excited to get into it with you and to learn about your podcast. So for those listening who don't know what you do with your daughter specifically, let's set the foundation first and just tell me about the podcast Decoding Taylor Swift.
Sure. Well, I'll give you my origin story.
There you
go. When my daughter was 3, she started saying blah, blah, blah to me. And I was okay with her repeating things like kids do if she knew what it meant. So I asked her, I said, do you know what blah, blah, blah means? And she paused and said, it's when Daddy says something that doesn't matter. So she did understand. And, that hit me kind of hard.
Yeah,
I have a PhD in physics, and I have given a lot of talks and all that stuff. But obviously, I hadn't learned the skill of actually talking to a 3-year-old. And, for those who have kids, it's all stories all the time. And I came to realize that, when I was telling stories, I was connecting with her. And when I wasn't, she was not like very, enthralled. And I went on to say, okay, I'm going to learn how to tell stories, study storytelling. And I realized ultimately, they've done fMRI studies that when speakers are telling stories, people are paying attention. Their brain waves are all in sync. And when they're not, then the brain waves are all over the place of the audience because basically they're not really paying attention. So I got into studying storytelling, the secrets of storytelling, the great storytellers going back to the great bards. the original, storytellers, and they used to sing their songs.
Yes.
Because of course that's why those are the great heroic poems, right? That's why someone, who doesn't get remembered is called an unsung hero. And so I was always looking for an accessible way to teach this. And, the modern singer-songwriters are, the modern bards are, the modern day bards are the singer-songwriters. And my daughter introduced me to many, and I came to see that Taylor Swift, had really specialized in storytelling, and she got better at it over time, and I could use that as a way to teach storytelling.
Oh, I have a lot to ask.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit in terms of your pursuit of story knowledge.
Yeah.
You said you studied physics, right?
Yeah.
So that was in your undergraduate.
Yeah, I have a very unusual background. Both of my parents were writers.
Okay.
My father was a newspaper editor for 30 years.
Interesting.
And my mother did one of those people who, whatever they did, she just excelled at. She was a Rosie the Riveter back in World War II. But I got skills, but I also saw they were not well paid. So
Fair.
I decided I'm not going to become a writer,
Mm-hmm.
And my uncle was a brilliant physicist, and he could just explain anything, to like an 8 or 9-year-old kid. Like he could explain why the sky is blue, why
how the world works.
sky, light ping-ponging inside a raindrop becomes a rainbow. And I was like, I want to explain things. So I did. I ended up getting a PhD in physics. But I ended up combining kind of the physics and the writing and public policy interest that we always talked about at the dinner table, and ultimately became someone very involved in clean energy and climate solutions. Worked at the Department of Energy for 5 years, and then I ended up having a blog at almost the same time I had my daughter. So I was starting to write online a lot, and realized also I could test the storytelling tricks that I was learning online and see who clicked on what. You get a lot of feedback when you're
Indeed.
when you're podcasting, right? You get a lot of data. What do people click on? What do they like? What do they share? What do they comment on? How long do they stay on your page? And so, I just learned over the years, I did learn, and I studied, the great storytellers. I was a Shakespeare fan, so I had some of that, and I loved, songwriters and great storytellers, whether it's Lincoln, or Churchill or Martin Luther King or Jesus, the people who are remembered for giving the great speeches, and they all use the same tricks. That's sort of what I came to realize, and they're not really taught. The memory tricks of the great storytellers, right? The thing about what I came to realize is the single most important thing in storytelling is to be memorable.
Yes.
Right? Because if people don't remember what you say, it doesn't really matter what you say. But the storytellers had, Homer, and they had, over thousands of years, figured out these tricks for remembering their multi-hour long poems and also ensuring that the listeners remembered them. So that was, and those are called the figures of speech. And that's everything from rhyme and alliteration to metaphor and irony and foreshadow and hyperbole, right? And there's over 200 of them. They're not really taught that much anymore. You learn a few, but when you're, maybe in high school, but you're never really taught the art of storytelling and relatedly the hero's journey, because that's sort of the other story that people want to hear, the zero to hero story, right? And which is sort of, I was telling the story before I realized that, my daughter's story is kind of a hero's journey story, right? Something happens in your life where you realize you failed at something that's important to you, right? And then you like, I need to learn this, and it's awakening, and so learning how to teach people all of this. And this is very much connected to the art of going viral. And I wrote a book called How to Go Viral and Reach Millions 9 years ago. Wow. And when you think about it, the first stories that went viral were the hero's journey stories, right? That was what Joseph Campbell showed in The Hero with a Thousand Faces, is that all of the great heroic stories in every culture around the world have the same arc.
Mm-hmm.
And they use these same tricks, these memory tricks. And so if you can master that, you are mastering the thing that over the 100,000 years that we developed language are the stories that endured, right? These are the stories that passed down through the oral tradition over tens of thousands of years and became the Greek myths, the Nordic myths, the stories in the Bible, right? All of these great stories, the flood, right, which appears in many different forms. So, yes, anybody can, and that was the other thing, anybody can learn these, right? People think, oh, you have to be born with the gift of gab or something like that. And the reality is that, I'm sure you know, everyone who is good at this spent a lot of time.
Yeah, it's a skill. It's a
skill.
Yeah. Absolutely. Buddy, I owe you an apology. I did not realize that you were this much of a storytelling nerd. And that is not a pejorative. I mean that as a compliment, my friend. We could take this conversation a million different directions. Real quick aside, you say you're a Shakespeare guy. Are you a film fan as well as music fan?
Absolutely. I'm a very big film.
Have you seen Hamnet?
I did see Hamnet about a month ago. Yes.
Yeah, I saw it late, but I finally got to catch it in theaters before it left, and oh my gosh, and incredible, heart-wrenching, incredible.
Yeah, the last 30 to 40 minutes of that movie are really gut-wrenching, and interestingly different from the book.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
And that obviously has a lot to do with the brilliant director that they brought in, who but yes, it's it certainly helps to be a Shakespeare fan.
But you don't need to be to enjoy that story. Yeah. And that final act is really I wouldn't really call it a twist, but they landed the plane so well with that. But just a sidebar.
Yeah.
When you talk about what I noticed as a pattern, when you talk about your father explaining how the world works, which I love.
Uncle, that was my uncle.
Uncle, pardon me. Yes. But the reason that kind of urged you to learn how to tell stories and also understanding how to communicate to your daughter.
Right.
Yes. They're both illustrating this kind of like the curse of knowledge, right? And how to explain things, complex things, in a clear way that's easy to comprehend. And nothing is more the essence of storytelling than that, as far as I'm concerned. What are some of the lessons? And this is something we see often in medicine, in science, right? This is a problem that a lot of people have when they're trying to communicate that type of information. What are some of the tools that people that are struggling with that can use in order to better convey the information that's so important for them to get across?
Right. Well, I think the first thing is to realize that it is not facts that persuade people, which is a painful thing to learn when you have studied as much, as I. Not that it's certainly useful to understand how to analyze facts.
Yes.
But I think it should be obvious, simply looking at the world and the country today, that it is stories and emotions that move people, and really stories. And these storytelling elements, the figures of speech, they are designed to create emotions, right? That's really when you say, how do you be memorable? Memories are, emotions are the most memorable thing.
Yes.
If I ask you what are the 5 most memorable moments in your life, they are always tied to a very strong emotion.
Yeah.
Right? It could be love. It could be that incredible embarrassing time that we all have, that we still remember, and so my job as a communicator is to get away from the notion that if I throw facts, numbers, charts at you, that is going to persuade you, and that is effective communications, right? And I need to figure out the stories, how to put things in a story form, whether it is telling the story that really drives home the message, and whether it is being relatable. I mean, right, your first job, if we were to start and say, what's your first job as a speaker, right? Your first job as a speaker is to establish that you're in the same group as the audience, right? Because if you're not in the same tribe, you're not in the same group, right? You'll be tuned out. You'll be an outsider, right? So my job is to be relatable, and figure out what is my connection to the audience, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we all think about how to do that when we're speakers, but that's really job one. Is I'm like you, and that's part of the hero's journey story.
I'm like you.
Right. The point of the hero's journey story, right, is you start out as a normal person in the normal world, and then you're pulled into the special world, and through a call to action or a quest or something, incident happens that forces you to, and you meet friends, you meet mentors, you gain knowledge, you maybe gain a superpower, and then you go back to the normal world, right? This is the story I always say is, the Wizard of Oz, right? The black and white world of Kansas. She runs away from home because her dog is threatened, right? And she gets swept up in the tornado, and she comes back with knowledge gained that there's no place like home, right? That's the return of what Campbell originally called the return of the elixir. Like,
yeah.
We're looking for the chalice, the holy grail with the chalice that will cure King Arthur, right? But in the modern days, what you return with is the knowledge, right? You might return with the knowledge that with great power comes great responsibility, right? But the point is, you have to start out where everyone else started out, as a normal person, so that they can perceive that they could also go gain the knowledge you did, right? Because if you just show up and say, I'm the smartest person in the world, I know everything, right? And here's what I know, you're not, right? That won't work, right?
Totally.
And it isn't true even, right? No one starts out that way.
This happens a lot with people who see successful people, though, right? They think, I've had to tell people this so many times before, it's like those people don't have superpowers.
Yeah.
And this is a real problem if you think there's a huge gap between their natural God-given abilities and talents versus, a direction, a system, and a skill and a clear path that they follow. So it's really helpful because people who haven't achieved what they want to will see someone that's successful and be like, oh, but they have this thing that I don't have.
And that's why the hero's journey remains. Half of all movies have the hero journey story, because it remains the case that we're all dropped on this planet and we don't know why, that we don't have a rule book, there's no orientation class, except the stories of the world are the orientation. And
that's so good.
we are drawn to trying to figure out why we're here. What is the thing that we bring, right? Our superpower, right? What is special about us?
Yes.
And so that's why this story continues to be one everyone wants to hear, and everyone needs to tell in some form. And yeah, it's your point that the people don't start this way. I mean, there's a quote I use from Taylor Swift where she says, "You have to write 100 songs before you write the first good one."
Yeah.
Right. You just don't hear that. I remember that what's his name? The great tennis player.
From what era?
The most recent.
Nadal?
No, the other.
Federer?
Federer. He gave a speech at Dartmouth where he says that, people say to him, well, you're effortless.
Uh-huh.
And he said, it's because you don't see the hours and hours and hours that I put in. So yeah. And that, by the way, that's a great speech to listen to. Mm-hmm. He says, I've won 80% of my matches. what percentage of my points did I win?
See,
it's like 53%.
Yeah.
And he's like, you just have to realize when you're playing tennis, that last shot, you have to put it out of your head. You're going to lose almost half your points, and yet you can still win 80% of your matches. And so, there are some great talks out there. The other one I recommend is the talk that Steve Jobs gives.
Oh, yeah.
At the Stanford graduation speech, because many people don't realize that at the age of 30, he was fired from the company he created by the friends and colleagues he built it with, Apple Computer.
Yeah.
And it's just an incredible story about how it was devastating, and then it became the best thing that ever happened to him. And of course, he bought a little company, he bought Industrial Light and Magic's, and it turned it into Pixar and all that stuff. So that's what, Decoding Taylor Swift in the podcast, what we're really trying to do is teach people the storytelling secrets by going through her songs and other songs too that she connects to reveal the tricks of storytelling. And she uses them all. That's what I sort of came to realize in how she writes these. And she loves hero's journey stories. She wrote a whole song called Anti-Hero. Right.
That's
right. And the opening line of that song shows that she understands, because the opening line of that song is, I have this thing where I get older, but just never wiser. Right. So the hero is defined by the fact that they learn and grow.
Yeah.
The anti-hero does not.
Dang.
Right. And the other defining features is the hero is selfless and the anti-hero is selfish. Right. And so those are the two defining personas in stories. And she is doing a lot in those songs. And, she uses a lot of foreshadow. People expect, if you're going to tell that circular story of the hero's journey, normal world, normal person, go into the special world, through a journey, a quest, gain knowledge, and then bring it back to the normal world, there's foreshadow. It's a circular story, right? So even, I often ask people, what was Dorothy's last name in The Wizard of Oz? Her last name was Gale, as in a windstorm.
Yeah.
As in she gets swept up in a windstorm. And so, there's never, all the great stories do have this element of foreshadow that and if it's done well, you may not notice all of it, but you will feel it all, and it will make the ending circular. And some people are, try to be more obvious about it, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think you have to have a spectrum of overt, what I call overt and covert, foreshadow.
Okay, so let's get into the podcast a little bit.
Yeah.
This is an endeavor.
Yeah.
And I know that running a podcast is not easy. So walk me through the reasoning. Like, when did you have this light bulb go off and say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start a podcast with my daughter about Taylor Swift and her storytelling through music.
Well, I over the years, we kind of bonded over a lot of singer-songwriters, and I would take her to concerts like Adele or Lady Gaga, and I would start to use some of the song lyrics to teach her things.
Nice.
Right. And one of the most memorable was when she was like, 8, and the song Shake It Off came out by Taylor, one of her most popular songs. And it begins, I stay out too late. I've got nothing in my brain. That's what people say. And so I thought, well, I could teach, this is irony, and I could teach my daughter irony. I could ask her the question, well, Taylor Swift says, I've got nothing in my brain, but does she believe that she has nothing in her brain? Or, because the next line is, that's what people say. Right, that's what people say. So just interrogate my daughter, have a conversation with my daughter, and she's like, well, no, obviously she doesn't believe that. Well, then why does she say something she doesn't believe? right? Well, that's what irony is. And I actually did a TED talk in 2 years ago. Is it 2 years? I've lost track of time now entirely.
Happens.
I did a TED talk 18 months ago in Ireland, of all places, TEDx talk on the storytelling secrets of Shakespeare and Taylor Swift. So I was mulling this idea over.
Yeah.
And it was literally, just so people understand the serendipity of all things, which I'm sure you know, is somebody heard a podcast I did 8 years ago with on my book, How to Go Viral and Reach Millions, in which I talked up some of this. I didn't know quite as much then as I do now, but I was talking some of the secrets of storytelling then. And so someone did a podcast and they kept airing it every few years. And somebody at this, company that works to help people develop brands and stuff heard it. And they reached out to me and said, well, would you like to, work with us? And so I ended up brainstorming with them, and I had this idea. We had a bunch of ideas, but when they heard this idea of the Taylor Swift podcast, he says, oh, well, that's kind of a no-brainer. And then when I realized, and this was the big thing for me, I realized, I could do this with my daughter. I could do this podcast with my daughter, or at least I thought I did. I could. I didn't know, right? I know how talented she is, but you don't know, can I sit next to her for 50 minutes and have a conversation? And she turns out to be the star of the show. I'm really her straight man.
Yes.
And I'm very happy to, it's so funny, but I'm happy to do that.
Of course.
So yeah, she, I will sometimes get off a little bit nerdy, as you would say, storytelling nerd, and then she'll throw some cold water on me or something, and
as she should.
It's a lot of fun, and as you know, if the podcast isn't fun for the people doing it,
oh, buddy.
Right.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I think that's such a beautiful way. I have a daughter too, who is 7 now. I have a daughter and a younger son. Mm-hmm. She and I are very, very close. It sounds like you and your daughter are as well. Music has been a big part of that bond. I introduce her to my stuff. She introduces me to hers. She goes to concerts with me. I love it. So that's why I was so excited to talk to you about this. And so I get how meaningful that time must be, and it's so exciting to me, and makes me very happy that you have that. I mean, that's a very precious time, and I imagine you have fun with that, and I know that one day you'll look back and be so glad that you have this time capsule just captured of the growth of you and your daughter both, and your relationship. It's a beautiful thing. So kudos to you, Pops, for that. It's a great way to establish that, and fun for her too, right? So it's not like a lecture from you, right? This is a learning opportunity for you both.
Yeah,
to grow together instead of let me tell you, right? This is storytelling. It's collaborative. It's a relationship. So I mean, you clearly get it. Talk to me about how storytelling can function like a generational bridge. Have you noticed anything there? Because I'm not sure how old you are versus your daughter, but there is a generation gap there.
Well, she is 18. In fact, she started college this fall, and so this has been very beneficial actually to sort of keep us talking, because now she's not. I'm in Washington D.C. and we began. Kids want to hear stories, right? Yeah. And I was very fortunate at being basically a writer, that I worked at home the first 6 years of her life. Mm-hmm. So, we did get close, and I would tell her stories and sing her songs. And as one knows, if you have kids, the nature of the stories change as the child gets older. In the beginning, at least for me, all the stories are basically thinly disguised stories about her. I mean, sometimes they're not thinly disguised at all. It's like, once upon a time, there was a little girl and her name was Antonia, right? That's her name. That's how a lot of stories would begin. And then at a certain age, it's like, not another one of those stories, Daddy. and then the stories would evolve into I want to finish the story, right? She wants to tell the story, right? She wants to take over the storytelling, and I would sing her songs, maybe inappropriate. I used to sing her Folsom Prison Blues. I had to sing songs in my range, you know, and it's all,
no.
and you know, I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. It was really, and then what I would do while I was singing, is I would stop singing. I'd be singing a verse, stop singing, and let her fill in.
Yeah.
And then she would fill in, and then I would start over again. So we just developed all these things. And yeah, I think that it is, look, stories are the thing that define tribes. The reason, why did the hero's journey become so societally important, right? Because it was the story of the most important thing you could be, which is a hero, a person who would sacrifice themselves for a larger cause, which is the cause of the tribe, right? Someone who is willing to sacrifice themselves for others, for the greater good, right? So the tribes inherently had a high motivation to want to tell these heroic stories over and over again, right? Because it basically said, if you do this great heroic deed, we will sing your story for all time.
Yeah.
Right. So this, you know, we pursue immortality, right? Through our kids. We have kids. We try to do things that are recognized, you know? So, you know, yes, these stories are music. You know, and I introduced her to, you know, as you, if you listen to the podcast, you'll listen to ABBA. You know, we used to listen to ABBA a lot. Used to listen to John Denver because I lived in Colorado for a few years, and of course the Beatles. You know, and then she introduced me to, you know, all of these. You know, whether it's Chapel Roan or, you know,
Yeah, buddy.
You know, and hey, you know, I get into Pink Pony Club. I mean,
and don't we all? I mean, it's the only song that my entire family will belt out when it hear. I mean, all of us. It's universal. Good music is universal.
Yeah, and you know, Pink Pony Club, it's interesting. And we finally decided this season, we're now in the third season, and we just launched the third season, which is going to be, we're going to go through during this year every song in the set list for the Eras tour.
Oh, wow.
All of her great songs. And but we've also decided we can talk about some other songs that are similar or ones that she refers to, because she refers to a lot of songs in her songs.
That's a good point.
And
buddy.
she refers to Bob Dylan.
Tim McGraw.
What?
She had a whole song called Tim McGraw.
And
Tim
she,
McGraw's a heck of a
refers to
storyteller.
Shakespeare a lot.
Yes.
Right? She rewrote 2 Shakespeare plays. Right? Yeah. She rewrote the end of Romeo and Juliet in Love Story, and her most recent album, she rewrote the Ophelia story in Hamlet, so it has a happy ending. So she's done that twice. So yeah, she has a lot of allusions, and you know, a song like Pink Pony Club is quite interesting story.
It's great
because if you watch the video, then you realize in the video, what happens in the song is mostly her imagination.
Yes.
Right. She says she dreams about L.A. and Santa Monica, right? But the question is, how much of this song is reality and how much is just in her head? And that's the kind of interesting discussions that you can start to have. Let's look at the lyrics. How much, because again, the music video starts in a grim place and then it spins up into this amazing place, but at the end it's just right. It's in some sense it's the normal world, special world, and normal world. But in this case, it's the same place. So you know, it's just once you get started with the good writers, right? With the good singer-songwriters, you can really get into discussing what the artist is trying to do, and we talk about that. And sometimes we'll talk about what Taylor was trying to do, and then maybe we don't think she fully achieved it, right? Because no one hits a home run every time. And, so it's just it is absolute. I mean, music is the most intergenerational thing that there really is, because all of those stories to be a successful pop song, right? You have to have an accessible tune and you have to have an accessible story. Right. And you have to use those figures of speech because that's poetry, right? You're trying to write what was the epic poems of the past, but now you're setting them to music. And you set them to music because music helps memory, right? I mean, that's the reason why music was, I mean, you know, I was able to take my mother to the original cast performance of Hamilton.
Oh, wow.
And which is amazing. And I brought back the album, and for 3 weeks, my daughter would listen to nothing else and had memorized like 95% of the lyrics, which is, and, you know, Hamilton, like Les Mis, is all sung.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, your ability to memorize things set to music is so much greater. And in fact, sometimes I tell people, if you actually want to memorize something, you might want to set it to music.
Yeah.
So
well, that's why all those like songs and the ABCs and things like that are in song when you're in childhood, when you're in school.
Absolutely. And the original nursery rhymes, of course, were lessons, right? We're trying to teach kids lessons. That's what the nursery stories and all that stuff is. So yeah, no, it's been, and I'm sure you feel the same way with your daughter, but I often say, you know, I've learned more from her than she learned from me.
Yeah, well, if you don't mind, I mean, I literally have that question written down. Yeah. What have you learned from your daughter? That's where I was going next. So great way to tee it up, my friend. Let's dive into that a little bit. That's the beauty of this kind of relationship. That's the beauty of this kind of endeavor. Is it's reciprocal. Yeah, you both grow, and that's the form. You know, the foundation of any great relationship, right? So, what has she taught you? It's clear, probably what you've taught her. Yeah. You're talking to us about it, but I know that you've learned things from her. Tell us about that.
Well, you know, when you're a man. And, you know, I'm a scientist by training, you know, very logical, rational mind. And you have a daughter. I mean, daughters are the best. I mean, what else can a father say? I'm sure I don't want you to diss your son or anything like that. But, you know, I have one kid and it's just easy for me to say the daughter, obviously father-daughter relationship is a very special relationship. And look, you learn that there is that it's easy for men to think that logic is the only way to look at the world. Let's just put it that way. And it isn't. No. Maybe it's a painful thing to learn, but the reality is that a world that was just built on logic would be a terrible place. Right. You know, so yeah, I mean, what I learned first, and fortunately, you know, my mother at a more abstract level taught me this. The single most important thing a speaker has to learn is that the only thing that matters is what the audience walks away with. Yeah. Right. And so if you explain something and they don't get it, that's on you. And if you think it's on them, you will never be a great teacher, communicator, or anything. Right. If it's your view that it should be obvious now, right? I couldn't have been clearer, right? You're just wrong, right? And so the world is filled with all sorts of different people, right? And you sometimes find people you sync with immediately, and it's very easy to talk to. That's a tiny fraction of people. And so if your goal is to persuade people, then yes, it is your obligation to put yourself in the shoes of the audience. Right. And that empathy is maybe the greatest human quality there is. And maybe it's something that, just to overgeneralize, men aren't as well known for that quality as another gender might be. So it's just that quality of empathy is what allows you to for me to, because people like, you're a 65-year-old guy, you know, and you're like talking about Taylor Swift. And I said, well, yes, I am. And, you know, and guess what? She's better writer than you think, you know. But yes, it's getting past the initial, whatever your initial view, prejudice, or just, you know, a first impression. And yeah, I learned that you can communicate with anybody if you are willing to put in the effort. And, unfortunately, we seem to live in a world where people aren't willing to put that effort in, and that's
very true, sadly.
And by the way, that's one of the other reasons I will say that we launched this podcast. I work in the area of climate change and clean energy, where there's been a lot of misinformation and things like that. And but I tell people, if you're if you think the world, if you're a change maker, which I talk to a lot of people listen to podcasts, are obviously everyone who's listening to podcasts like this is trying to get better, right? Self-improvement. And often it's because I don't like the way how I am in the world. I want to change something, right? And what I say is, if your goal is social change, which I have, interact with a lot of people on, it's like the world as it is today is built around stories. The stories define the status quo. They define what it means to be a member of whatever group or tribe that you're in. If you were a fan of the Patriots, right? That means one thing. If you hate the Patriots, that means something, right? So the point is, if you think that the world could be better and you want to change it, you're going to have to come up with a better story and know how to tell it better and know how to just make sure that it gets widely heard, right? Because the people who don't want to change the world, they're going to spend a lot of effort simply telling their version. And that's just the way of the world and the way it's always been. And you may not like the fact that that's how the world is, but that is how the world is. And like I said, if you're happy with the way the world is, it's not a skill you need to learn. But if you want to change something about the world, or simply change someone else's mind, this is something, the guy Dan Kahneman, who won the Nobel Prize for creating behavioral economics, he wrote Thinking Fast and Slow.
Oh, yeah.
Him. He's the guy who explained to, he's the first psychologist who won the Nobel Prize in economics, explaining to psychologists, guess what? People aren't actually rational. Right. We have a lot of mental shortcuts because our brain uses like 20 to 25% of our metabolism. Right. So we will follow the lead of other people, because if you're out there in the savannas and you hear a rustling and everyone's running that way, you can sit and wait until you learn what the source of that noise is, or you could just run with everyone else. That's probably the right move. So we have all of these shortcuts, and one of the shortcuts is we evaluate what people say, not because we're going to figure out whether they're being factually accurate, because we can't do that, right? If I go out and speak in my area of expertise, no one in the audience is in a position to adjudicate the truth of that. They are in a position to adjudicate whether my words match my emotions and my message, right? So we're very finely attuned to this issue of hypocrisy and authenticity.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why, and by the way, what we view as authentic is created in our minds from the accumulation of thousands of stories we've heard, right? We know what a hero sounds like simply because we've heard hundreds, thousands of stories. And when you're a kid, you listen to the same story 10 times, right? And so if you don't know how to tell a story right, in the way that people are expecting, then it will sound, it won't ring true, right? We have all these phrases for what it means when there's a clash between the words someone is using and either their actions or the emotions they're expressing. So yes, this is really, really gets to the essence of what storytelling is. And an essence, by the way, of why podcasts, we talk about this on the podcast. Why are podcasts so popular?
Mm-hmm.
Well, AI and the internet has devalued the authenticity of the written word.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You have no way of knowing now when you see something in writing who wrote it and what its accuracy is. Now, you can spend some time finding that out, right?
Sure.
But the point is, your prima facie view now of anything you read is going to be skepticism, right? And podcasts are one of the last bastions of authenticity. And of course, that's another reason why video has taken over podcasting, right?
There you go.
And not that you could create a fake video of two people on a podcast, but it would, the point is, it's clear that we're not, right?
Yeah.
So there's a prima facie, this is an authentic conversation. And it's why I was advised, don't use the edit software to remove every or pause.
No, yeah.
Because it's not real, right? It doesn't sound.
It's funny in the video world. They're advising people, like on TikTok or Instagram Reels, for example, to do similar things of like, don't try to make it super polished, because now that's going to feel inauthentic. Just go off the cuff, go, sitting in your chair, lying in your bed, make it feel like someone's in the room with you because of exactly what you're talking about. So I know you're, with your daughter going to school, you're kind of naturally at this transitional stage. What are you looking forward to in the future, the near future? Are you working on another book? Are you focused just on, not digging your heels in a bad way, but like strengthening the foundation of the podcast? What's coming up for you in the next year or two?
Well, we just launched in July. It takes a long time to build a podcast, as you know. We've had a very good response, and we had a very good Spotify Wrapped, which was nice because you don't until you see the Wrapped, you don't get some comparison statistics that and so people are sharing the content, they're listening to the content, and so it's just a matter of doing podcasts. One of my goals this year is I want to do a bunch of podcasts. Get the word out, as it were. I have, it is my intention to create a book out of this. Yes.
Oh, nice.
I have a lot of material already. So, that is definitely on the list. So I'm just hoping to grow the podcast and get to the point where it's people. A certain fraction of people, according to Spotify Wrapped, about 1 in 3 of the people who follow us, it ends up being their favorite podcast.
Nice.
So that's awesome. Niche, the 1,000 true fans they talk about.
Yeah, buddy, right? Kevin Kelly. Yeah, that's a good percentage. Well, I hope that we help spread the word. It's such an awesome endeavor. I mean, as a father to a daughter and as a storyteller, I'm really proud of you. It's very exciting. It's such a cool move. And so congrats, man. That's a very cool thing that you've done with her.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the chance to talk to you. And maybe at some point, are you into Taylor at all, or
dude? I got a 7-year-old daughter, right? Absolutely, but it not for her. I mean, Taylor Swift's music it connects with all generations. I mean, I'm a music fan of all genres. Or many genres. My brother brought me up. He was Gen X. I was a little younger, but had a very eclectic taste in music and taught me a lot when I was very young. So I am receptive to all genres, and it's pretty undeniable, at least what she's done. I remember her, very first album. Yeah, because I was a young man then, so I remember Tim McGraw and Our Song and these early ones. And I've introduced my daughter to some of her earlier work. Because Taylor now, it's so crazy. She's been doing this for 20 years. I mean, forever. So yes, I am. I hesitate to say fan, but I'm no less of a fan than we all kind of are. Like everybody's to some degree, I would say, a Taylor fan. There's definitely some haters out there. But I'm not a fanatic. I'm not a Taylor fanatic, but certainly a fan of her music. I think she's incredible, and I loved that song in what was it? It was probably the late aughts when Our Song came out.
Our Song is such a good song. It is, for people who haven't heard it, she wrote it when she was 13.
Yeah.
And it is a clever take on a song, which is that her, she complains to her boyfriend that they don't have a song, and her boyfriend says, well, we do have a song. The song is the sounds of our life. Right. And I won't, and it's like, why didn't anyone think of that before her? Why was 13-year-old Taylor the first person to come up with that really
our
clever
song is
idea?
A slamming screen door, Yeah. I mean, it's incredible.
It is incredible. And so yeah. Well, I appreciate.
We love you, Taylor.
Yeah, we do.
Hopefully, has Taylor heard about the show? To your knowledge?
Not. I mean, who knows? But probably not yet. But like,
we got to make that happen.
That's it. It would certainly be nice if she did.
I
hear
know that's
about
not
it.
the goal, pal. But I mean,
yeah,
we'll combine efforts on that. I think it's possible in this day and age of social media. Anything is possible. Everybody is reachable, so that's the plus side. But otherwise, keep doing what you're doing, making great memories with your daughter, and sharing stories, man. It's very, very, very powerful. I love your perspective on all this, Joe.
Thanks so much, Rain. Really enjoyed this.
Absolute, brother. Appreciate you. My name is Rain Bennett. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed that episode, do us a favor and subscribe to the podcast. If you're already a subscriber and you're enjoying the show, give us a review and let us know the value that you've gotten from it. We love to hear from our listeners and learn about the benefits that they're getting from the show. That's what fuels us, and that's what fuels the show. And if you've already subscribed and you've already reviewed it and you think there's someone else that would benefit from listening to this show, please share it with them. The more we grow, the more we can help you grow, and that's what we're here to do. Join us next time on the Storytelling Lab.